This video is now in session, and today we're going to analyze the declaration of run-in for the 2022 U.S. Senate election in Ohio by Tim Ryan. So Tim Ryan is currently one of the members of the House of Representatives from the Ohio delegation. He's a Democrat. He also ran for president in 2020, but that didn't go really far. That said, he is now declaring that he will run for the 2022 Senate to replace Rob Portman, who is the current incumbent senator and is not, and Rob Portman has already stated that he would retire and not run for re-election. So this goes against the Republican primaries list of Jane Timken, as well as other individuals like Josh Mandel and J.D. Vance. These three candidates have the highest chance of winning in the Republican primary. J.D. Vance is a venture capitalist. Jane Timken used to be the chair of the Republican Party for Ohio, and Josh Mandel used to be the treasurer, and he also ran for Senate in both the 2012 and 2018 election against Sherrod Brown. So, what does Tim Ryan do for this kind of competition, and why did he run for the first place? So, Tim Ryan, in terms of what he brings, he's more of a working class kind of person, and he's positioning himself more as a Sherrod Brown candidate rather than a Ted Strickland candidate, where it's primarily about trade unions as well as manufacturing and things that you would associate with the Rust Belt region. So as a result, he is trying to get those votes because he will need those kinds of voters in order to win the election. So in the same map where Sherrod Brown won 53.4% of the vote for his re-election in 2018 by winning a lot of these Rust Belt counties, especially Northeast Ohio, at the same time in the 2016 election, Rob Portman won over a lot of those counties to go for him, and you can see that some of those same counties that went for Democrats in 2018 went for Republicans in 2016. So it's both showing a sign of Donald Trump's influence over Ohio, because Ohio has gotten more Republican in recent years, but also the influence that Sherrod Brown has on his constituencies, how a lot of people approve of him, and that's who Tim Ryan is trying to emulate and embody in the Democratic primary. Now, he will be able to go through the Democratic primary relatively easily. In terms of other candidates, there are not really that many other high-profile candidates that could actually run for the 2020 election, or the 2022 U.S. Senate election in Ohio. There's Kevin Boyce, there's Amelia Sykes, there's Kathleen Clyde, and Jerry Springer, but none of them are real contenders against someone like Tim Ryan, who's much more popular with people in Ohio. Now, the only formidable opponent to Tim Ryan would have been Amy Acton, who is very well known for her response to the COVID-19 pandemic by partnering with Ohio Governor Mike DeWine in a bid to suppress COVID cases, which in the first wave was done pretty much because of Amy Acton. So that she would be the formidable challenger. That said, she declined to run for this race, and thus Tim Ryan pretty much has an open field for him to win the Democratic primary and go against whoever is whoever wins the Republican primary. Now, would he win against the Republican primary? As of now, the Republicans will still be the favorite to win in the Senate election in Ohio, mainly because Donald Trump was able to win Ohio in both the 2016 and the 2020 elections by a huge, big margin, likely margins, like around 8 percentage points, 7 to 8 percentage points for Ohio. So it's not immediately likely for Tim Ryan to be the favorite to win, and whoever the Republican nominee is will most likely be the favorite. Now, it depends which kind of Republican nominee they want. If they want Josh Mandel, then they're probably looking for someone who's a tiny bit more moderate. But if they're looking for Jane Timken, then they're looking for someone they're looking for someone a little bit more to the right. So it's a complete it's probably going to be more of a fight for the in the Republican primary rather than in the Democratic primary, because you have these types of candidates: J.D. Vance, Jane Timken, Bernie Moreno is also in this, but also Josh Mandel, and all four of them have at least some kind of endorsements from notable individuals, especially Jane Timken, with endorsements by state representatives and state senators, as well as Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. So Jane Timken is obviously representing the very conservative side. Josh Mandel is representing the a little bit more moderate side. So whoever wins out, if Jane Timken does win out, then it would actually be a little bit easier for Tim Ryan to win in this race, mainly because Ohio is not completely to the right, even though it does elect politicians like John Boehner and Jim Jordan. Ultimately, those are in the House, and their conservatorship does not translate over to the Senate with Rob Portman and as well as Sherrod Brown. So, how would I rate this race? This race, I would be rated between likely and lean. I'll give lean just for the benefit of the doubt. But if the race does, but we do need a little bit more polling, and we also need to. It's also a little bit too early to say what kind of margin this race will turn out to be. But if Ohio is lean, that gives Democrats an opportunity to flip that seat, because anything that's lean or a tilt for the opposition party, then it's possible for that party to be overturned in an election. And that could happen with Ohio. Democrats should not be giving up in Ohio just because they lost it for the past two elections by nearly double-digit margins. Ohio, it went to Trump by that huge of a margin, mainly because he is Trump and he was able to cultivate a lot of people in Ohio to vote for him. But in the same term, a Democrat was able to win in the Senate. Sherrod Brown was able to win in the Senate. So it's not completely a lost cause for Democrats. And Democrats can't give up on Ohio just yet, mainly because of how many electoral votes it does have. It has 17 electoral votes in totality, which is a lot of electoral votes in comparison to other states. And ultimately, if they don't keep fighting in Ohio, then they're just going to give those 17 electoral votes to the Republicans, and they will lose a chance to make 2 Senate seats competitive. Thus, it's still up to Democrats, and it should be what the Democrats do in Ohio, and that should be strong. Now, why is Tim Ryan specifically running in this race? Because usually politicians run in a race because they want to they want to have that position. But Tim Ryan in this case was almost kind of forced to run in this position. If Tim Ryan was not forced at all to run in this position, I don't think he would have. Because because even though Ohio will probably swim back to a bit more to be in a bit more of a competitive state, it's still a little bit too early for that to happen. But Tim Ryan is forced to do this because of redistricting. With every decade in the House, there's always redistricting there, and there's a shuffling of the seats, and sometimes a party's candidate or a representative is redistricted into another district and thus has to go against another representative. Another option is that person may be that person may be put in a heavily opposition led district, and that's what could happen with Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan could be there are 2 options that could happen with his seat. Since Republicans control all 3 parts of government in Ohio, then they are responsible for redistricting, and what they could probably do is either axe completely Tim Ryan's seat, so there is no so Tim Ryan would be put in a Republican district, or they could try to they can try to shift Ohio's 13th congressional district to include the southern areas of Ohio, also making it a more Republican-friendly district. And if you look here at 538, if you have a gerrymander scenario for Republicans, then this seat that currently was the 13th district would then become either a very heavily Republican 7th, 13th, or 6th district, which is not favorable for someone like Tim Ryan. His election between 2010 and 2020 has already shown that this seat has narrowed up for Democrats, and just through gerrymandering alone, this seat can become Republican, and thus that he is essentially forced to run for a position higher up, even though he may think that he might not win. He has no choice because of what the Republicans can do in redistricting. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.